Hello, hello, hello. I'm Johnny Jungleguts, the top-notch gamer, aka the top-notch gamer, and this is Let's Gay. Today on the show I have my wonderful friend Melody Yenn. Melody, thanks so much for being on the show, and thanks so much for coming back on the show after I deleted you.
Was that what happened?
Well, no. What happened was I didn't record your... Okay, we've got these goons stomping around. I didn't record your thing. Oh, you know what? I think I know what I need to do. But how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Kind of hot. I was driving down here and my car doesn't have AC, and at one point my phone overheated, so I had to well, my AC works, but it only works for about 15 minutes. So I used those precious 15 minutes to cool my phone in order to finish navigating here. So
Wow.
By and large,
That
pretty
is
good.
rough.
Just toasty.
So I'm going to try a new strategy today to start off the show.
What's that?
Which I read, it was in a New York Times article about an interview you can do, or I guess a conversation you can have with another person to determine whether you guys can be, in love.
Ooh. Okay.
And what it is part of the interview is that you describe your life, you tell your life story to someone in 2 minutes.
Oh my god.
So I'm challenging you.
Okay.
I'm going to wait till the clock goes to 6:45.
How,
And then you'll have 2 minutes to tell me your whole life story, but you've got probably a couple seconds to prepare here.
What do I cover? Alright.
I think you can do it. Alright, we're not quite there yet. Keep thinking. Keep thinking. While we're getting this guy back here. Go.
Okay, so I was born in California. Always been a California girl. My folks are from Taiwan, so I'm first in our extended family to be born here. I grew up in a suburb. I went to school and did lots of extracurricular activities and all kinds of things like drawing and cello, which led me eventually to do cello for my undergraduate studies. And after that, I took a year off, and that was in Houston. So I hung out in Houston for a year and did a bunch of things throughout, still kept up artistic, theatrical activities. Really liked meeting people who were involved in stuff like that. After that year, I went to Cal Arts for experimental animation and finished that up a couple years ago, and throughout, again, have met really awesome people and had a lot of interesting experiences, figured out all of my high school shit a lot later than most people would, because I didn't really have a high school social life. Most recently, in January, did costumes for a high school production of Seussical the Musical. Helped out on a multimedia production involving textiles, where I assisted textile artists. Have freelanced animation for the better part of the last year, and looking into the future in, let's say, the current dream right now is to get into children's literature. And how much time do I have left? Did I overshoot?
You've still got a few seconds left.
Oh my gosh. Today I watched a lot of Chopped. And I feel like Chopped is amazing and inspiring and makes me feel good about life and feel good about people.
Wow.
And I wish everyone could watch it. I feel like we could all learn a lot from it. It's like life.
A cooking reality show.
That 2-minute bio felt like a Chopped challenge. So.
It's still going.
It's still going? You said a few seconds left.
I don't know. It's not 6:47 yet.
Man.
Now it is. Now
okay,
it's over.
Now it's over.
So now let's just get right into it here. You're saying that you got over. It took being till Cal Arts to get over your high school something.
Oh, I can clarify that. Is that?
I want to hear about that and what that meant and what that is.
Well, I think going to your undergraduate, so I'll back up a little and go back to Houston, right? Going to your undergraduate out of state is a big deal. It's a big deal for anyone, but I think a particularly intense and, in the end, I guess, good phase for my life. But looking back, I think a lot of the stuff that I went through in undergrad just sort of seemingly basic things, just interacting with new people, making friends, handling yourself in those ways that I think typically people get through, or at least however messily in high school, was something that I hadn't really experienced until I went to undergrad.
Okay.
And I didn't think about it this way at the time, of course, but looking back, absolutely. So I think I do have I had like a rueful outlook, or a little bit regretful outlook for a little while, thinking like, I wish I'd kind of gotten some BS out of the way sooner and not have done that maybe when the stakes were a bit higher, shall we say, or, I was in a situation where I would have rather not wasted my time with those life lessons that
Wasted your time?
I guess. I don't know. I mean, of course.
What was more high stakes about that time than high school?
Well, college costs a lot more, like in terms of classes.
That's true.
Like your time in between classes, just like your whole life and like how you spend your time, I think is charged with, very obviously responsibilities that aren't around in high school. But at the same time, I emphasize again going out of state and being, seemingly, at least functionally, independent and away from family and all the things that surrounded me before, inevitably you learn a lot. So I mean, maybe I got it all in really quickly. I could take another perspective and say the things that I was up to, the bubble I was in high school, was how it was supposed to be. I mean, how can you argue? I'm like the product of whatever happened to me.
So essentially, just what happened in college was that you just got better at making friends. Is that what I'm hearing?
You could, I guess, yeah. The simplest way to put it is like that, or just dramas like messing up with keeping secrets, or how to handle when people go off and find a significant other, or just all those like plethora of things that
that you wanted to have as a significant other.
I'm not thinking specifically like that, but
I'm
thinking of specific instances, literally just, having girlfriends and just like all the things that you learn about having girlfriends in high school, for instance. All the things that they make those
girlfriends as personal friends or as relationship friends.
Oh, I wasn't queer back then, or wasn't aware of queerness back then.
Okay.
But so we're speaking in friendships. Literally just friendship stuff. Dealing with being invited places, dealing with being chill,
so you were
not worrying about being included and like all that stuff that I think a lot of people, I'll just wrap it up in a big blanket and call it typical experience that at least, I'm not saying everyone succeeds at, but is exposed to and has to like deal with one form or another in high school, really came to me in undergraduate, so a good chunk later, the next phase. So it's like I had a little delayed chapter, overlapped over everyone. Because I think I was just not as chill. I just didn't know how to chill back then.
I mean, it's amazing that you were really, really lone duck in high school then.
I kind of was, yeah, I really was.
And why was that?
The most immediate, I think, big category, answer to that is being like a kid of immigrant parents in a suburb and not being immediately in any kind of community. Like my parents there wasn't really a culture of like having people over, or like, all of our relatives are in another country. So there was, even just the simple things like holidays were like very empty-ish affairs comparatively. And then I think just being, not to use an academic term to death, but you're sort of this other, and if your parents are also inadvertently othering you and saying things like, you're not like other kids, you do this and like whatever, and then keeping you, really busy. My mom was really good about finding educational resources outside of public school. So after a certain age, I stopped playing with my brother and stopped having like little sleepover things. I just think that
she was one of those moms who like gave you a million extracurriculars, is what you're telling me.
Well, she sought them out, and they make a big part of who I am today, so I don't say it in any kind of, she did. And, that's not my whole life. I do remember having my brother and I were really close in age, and so growing up, I mean, we were like each other's playmates all the way up until middle school. And it's not as though we didn't have friends, like we would have the sleepovers and we'd have like the parties here and there. There just was never a situation that seemed to stick for me so much. Because I'll contrast this a little bit. I mean, my brother, I think, would have his own things to say, but...
and how old is he?
A year younger than me, so he'll be 28 this fall. And so... I think he had a slightly different experience being like second born and maybe flying under the radar a little bit in terms of, I don't know, just not having to be like the first wave of figuring things out.
I think
they're good and bad in both instances, of course. Like, I mean, there's, like I said, he would have a lot to say about that. But I think in terms of just making friends and having friends that like stick and people that he's still in touch with, like he still talks to and I think makes time to meet up with people he was friends with in high school, and me not so much, and certainly not hearkening back further than that. I think it helped that he went to the same high school for 4 years. I'm not saying it was always great, but yeah. And he stayed in California when he went to college, and a lot of the same people in high school, at least there was a handful of people that all kind of went to one UC or another or something similar to that, so they were kind of like close to home and had like a little nest. And for me, it was kind of like change was like a very big constant, which I know is cheesy. It applies to everyone's life, but literally just I feel like my life, socially speaking, to answer your question, has like been marked by these big chunks of time that are all really unrelated to each other. So when I think about one time preceding, it almost feels like this other lifetime. Does that clarify a bit?
Sure. Now, do you think that push to do all the extracurriculars was that a cultural thing? Because I taught at a school, it was like all Chinese students, and it was on Saturdays, and I taught art, but there was also like math classes and stuff. Mm-hmm. And I was like, why do math classes on the weekends? And they were like, I think it was maybe this thought that, like, you know, schools in the U.S. are not very academically rigorous.
I think it really depends.
Public schools.
Yeah, public schools, certainly not. It's hard to compare.
Yeah.
Well, without being a scholar on East Asian diaspora, I will say a big part is generational, so I think that can vaguely apply across cultures in terms of, you know, you work hard, you'll get this, you'll be secure, you'll have freedom, you'll feel free to do whatever you want, right? So I think very much about that. Both of my parents, though, despite being part of that generation, I think even within their families growing up, I think they both could have been artists, or they have artistic souls. So in that other sense, they also saw the value in complementing whatever it is that you do to try and do well by your kids, you know, to enrich their lives, and et cetera, et cetera. I will also say that, I mean, in school in Taiwan, as far as definitely when my parents grew up, and certainly maybe even my cousins, so maybe even as contemporary as that, arts and music are all fully integrated into school. It's not considered extra. So perhaps in that sense, speaking for my parents only, that, you know, they saw it as like, okay, well, if we're not getting this in our schools, then like, how do we supplement this? Like, whatever.
Right. And
in fact, we moved, my mom, they looked for a place for us in the district that we lived in because it was one of the few public elementary schools that at the time still had music program incorporated. So that was something.
And that's where you did cello, maybe?
Yeah, that is where Baby Melodies started off on a little rental instrument. Before private lessons ever became a thing. Yeah, that was in school, like an after school, like, youth orchestra thing. Playing Hot Cross Buns and things like that.
Hot Cross Buns, that's always the song, isn't it?
And Twinkle Twinkle Little Star.
That was the song on recorder as well.
Yeah, I did the recorder program too. I even have like a shameful story. So
let me hear it.
I think my folks must have. Now I'm kind of forgetting, but basically, you know, you were lent one if you you were a participant in this program, you were lent a recorder, and I think I lost it and found another one somehow. I don't know where it came from, and replaced it, and totally never told anyone. And it's so not a big deal hearing myself say it now, but at the time it felt like such a crazy thing to do and get away with.
Yeah.
That I didn't return like the proper instrument that was returned to me.
Oh my gosh.
Or maybe it was something weird where I kept it and swapped it for some other one, but at this point I don't remember.
Wow.
Yeah, I can't imagine. I think they still teach recorder. I think that's still a thing.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, it seems like a pretty common first instrument, right?
Yeah, I mean, think about it. It's cheap. You don't have to lug it everywhere. And, they come in plastic, so it's not a super expensive thing to lose, or you can't worry about a kid breaking it.
Right.
Not like you would for other things.
Wow. Okay, so now in the game, we are trying to... Okay, I'm going to try...
Oh yeah, what's been happening?
It says I need to sell a sword. The right sword, but I don't see it in my... I don't see it in my inventory, but I think that could be a translation issue.
Oh.
Okay. Aichigeki. Yes, I have it.
Oh, cool.
Oh, who's gonna be the best at fighting him? I'm saying this guy. Alright, here we go. Oh, you don't get to control your guys when you do these fights? It's just, you just pit them against...
Whoa, so this is like movie-ish?
I don't even... Oh, okay, well, we won.
Huh.
And we got back this character, who's one of my favorite characters in the game.
Which one? This guy?
Shadow is his actual name, but I named him Sachin after my dear friend from elementary school.
Aww. How many people from elementary school are you still in touch with?
Oh no, he was high school, actually.
Oh, okay.
Elementary school, I mean, it's, in touch with is such a weird phrase, because I feel like I'm friends with so many people on Facebook, but I only see them maybe once a year at Christmas, or even less, you know? Like, I think I saw my friend Matt from elementary school at Christmas this past Christmas.
That's
So,
nice.
but it's funny, sometimes the people like that you had sort of an adversarial like relationship with in elementary, middle school, and then eventually, or you like really looked up to them, and then you like shift, and then they're the ones who think you're really, really cool, like online and stuff, and you're just like, where is this coming from? You know?
Isn't
It's always
that
really
interesting
funny
'cause,
to me.
Like, you forget to let people grow in your mind, like, as you've grown. It's like
Right.
the memory of them stays with...
Or just even people at art school who, like, I was just so intimidated by and thought were so cool and, like, too cool for me to even be friends with, and then, like, you know, maybe they, like, got out of art or, like, just whatever, became really lazy in life. That's mean to say, but whatever, and you're like, man, it's kind of sad that I'm not intimidated by them anymore. Sort of like the way I feel about it sometimes.
Yeah, I guess that's growth, I guess.
Like if they're not really doing that much.
Right.
Alright, let's see here. What do we got going on? I feel like we're getting into the point of this game where a lot of things are just like... okay, that's useful. I'm glad we got 2 of those. Let's see... Let's see if we have one that lets you do the recoil damage. Gauntlet. No, that's not it. Let's see in the other guys. While I'm looking at this, could you read me this one here?
Sure. When you entered Narshe,
Sure.
The first thing you want to do is go left and in through the secret entrance. Make your way up to the lair of the Moogle, and there you will find Mog. Speak to him to get him to join your party again, then examine the spot where he was just standing to get the Moogle charm.
Okay.
You want me to keep going?
That's good for now.
Okay.
Strength plus, see if anyone else does strength plus 2. Strength plus 2 is useful. Alright. No. It's just this guy, so I'm putting him on him. Let's see, what could his be? Alright. HP, that would be good, I think. Something with extra HP. HP plus 10%. Alright, so tell me about Chopped. Why is that show so great?
Well, I think this is what I always theorize about that show. It's been a while. I think that show's been on the air for a while.
Mm-hmm.
This show is a product of people finding Iron Chef and the whole secret ingredient element really interesting, right? So you got people especially people who are like supposedly really good at their job, they have to like kind of get really creative sometimes. Not all Iron Chef episodes are amazing. My favorite one is Battle Beat. That was the first time I ever learned about molecular gastronomy, and that shit was super cool. So someone took this most interesting element from Iron Chef, right? And then programming from, I'm guessing, Top Chef, where as like mini challenges before like a big elimination challenge, they would have these like really quick, like quick draw kind of challenges that they had to follow through with, and created a show where you didn't have to stick around for an entire season to get any kind of gratification on like someone you liked, or just you at the end of one episode, a single one of Chopped, you have a winner. So I think it was really smart. It's like easy to get into. You can get into it at any time. Each episode's like independent unto itself.
So it's a food cooking competition show between how many people? 2?
It's elimination 4 in 3 rounds, and then you have a winner at the end. So
in
like,
an hour.
Like about 40 minutes, yeah. And
Okay.
I mean, an hour if you include commercials. And have you seen the show?
No, I've never seen
Oh,
Chopped.
okay, so I'll explain it. So Ted Allen, who some of you might remember from Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, is the host. Is the host.
The
and,
food queer.
Yeah, and at the very beginning, you have 4 people, and they each have a mystery basket, and so this is where the Iron Chef element comes in. So instead of 1 mystery ingredient, each round has up to 4 mystery ingredients in the basket. Everyone gets access to the same amount in each of their own, and they have 15 or 30 minutes, or 20, something like that, minutes to complete a dish. And the way the rounds are arranged originally is first round, you got to make something that's like an appetizer. Second is entree, third is dessert. So, only a few of them get to the very end and get to do that challenge. And they have 3 guest judges who decide who gets to go and who gets to stay. And another great design of the show, and I think it's very fitting given when the show showed up, is that they got, I think someone realized, okay, we're tired of like really cynical, like really mean, having these people, like the whole Simon Cowell thing, that's dead and gone. So we're going to have these people who are really good at what they do, but who give like really constructive feedback, and at the same time, expect a lot from these competitors, but deliver it all in a very kind of nice way. And even nicer, because I think in the beginning you have the way that it's edited, or I don't even know who directs these things. They're like come off as really cold and bitchy, or they have resting bitch face, like this one Amanda, who eventually became my favorite chef or favorite judge, because they included these little things. If you went on foodtv.com or foodnetwork.com,
wow, you're going on pretty exclusive
they have
clips.
these like mini episodes
exclusive clips
of the judges doing the challenges themselves, which totally personalizes them. It's a very smart production move. It gets you to love them as well as like root for the competitors. And eventually, since this show's been around for a super long time, they started throwing like really wacky things in there where they're like, wait a second, so you have watched this show and now you're competing, but instead of appetizer, entree, dessert, we're gonna do all brunch or something like that. So they come in, or there'll be like every single dish has to be made on a grill. So they'll have people be a little like throw a little curveball like that.
Yeah.
And they'll maybe start to have themed episodes in which every competitor comes from a certain background. Like there was one I watched today. It's an oldie, but it's on Netflix where they all ran food trucks. And there was one I remember where they were all cafeteria ladies. So yeah, it's an awesome show.
You love it.
I do love it. I fantasize about doing spoofs of it all the time. I just think it's awesome.
Mm-hmm.
I love Tal Allen. I love the judges. I love the competitors. Even when they have a bad attitude, it's like the worst it gets is just they throw a little shade and the editor has some fun with it. They're like reactionary expressions.
Man, though, Ted Allen, I mean, I just feel like he really came up in a way, because Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, like, it's a really crazy moment in gay history, because it's like this whole thing, I sort of feel, where, like, gay guys are sort of like so accessorized in that moment, right?
Mm-hmm.
They're like this thing that can sort of improve your straight life in this very innocent, non-threatening way that's very, very like straight and gay. Words like straight and gay, which I use all the time and I think are really still relevant to culture, are sort of a word like nature or something like that. Like there's an attempt to separate two things that are really not separate in any way, like a straight person and a gay person, a building and a tree. You know, they all still exist in the world sort of together. You know what I mean? I do not know what that thing was that we were just fighting, some kind of ghost, and it ran away. That was so weird. Okay, where's Narsh on the map? Number 19. Where are we going? Up to the top, up here.
Yeah.
I think it's right up here. And in a way, you know, it's just one of those things where, in a way, it's really great because you've got, you know, just to have gay people on television was so rare in those times, and but it's like then it sets up all these other, it like reduces like larger issues, just the issue of visibility, you know?
Yeah.
Because a lot of people used to not know that gay people even really existed. Like Phil Jimenez, who's one of my favorite comic book writers and artists, he was a writer on Aquaman with his partner, who died of AIDS, and he wrote a tribute to his partner in an issue of Aquaman. And there was a guy, this was in the early 90s, there was a guy who wrote in from the Midwest or something, and he said, "Thank you so much. I didn't know there was anyone else like me."
Wow.
Because we were still at a point, even in the 90s, in culture, where some people didn't even know, they thought, they could have thought they were literally the only person like that. And so visibility in that mode does become so important. But then it's sort of like, I mean, I don't like to make these comparisons too often, but it's sort of like Uncle Tom's Cabin, right?
Okay.
That was a book that was an abolitionist book designed to basically talk about how slavery was wrong, right? And written by a woman. However, Uncle Tom's Cabin also set up an entire array of literary media stereotypes for black people that we still engage with today. And that's similar with Queer Eye for the Straight Guy, but it's also like this thing where like there's like, I don't know, this is something that I constantly wrestle with, which is like stereotypes, realities, which often sometimes agree with stereotypes,
right?
And then I guess just nuance, right? I don't know. How do you engage with all that stuff?
Well, thinking about Queer Eye, I feel like that because I remember a lot, like, of Queer Eye, but then it gets lost in sort of this funny gap. It's like a cultural blind spot that we're all kind of like, wait, that happened? And like, wait, that's like weirdly still relevant today? And like the throwback nowadays, like everything that's on trend is like 90s. We're approaching like late 90s now in fashion. Like I would even say, without knowing much more about it, maybe music, aesthetics, internet, all that stuff, that it's like that now people who are maybe consuming it are kind of echoing it, or it's rippling out from people that didn't even live through that. And maybe it stops just short of like knowing how to operate a VHS deck or like what a floppy disk was. But visually, you know, these are things that we're like recognizing, and at the same time we're still like forgetting about. I don't know, I go through these little rashes on Netflix sometimes where I'm watching like teen, you know, quote unquote teen movies or whatever from the early aughts, or even something like Legally Blonde, and it's like they're weirdly, not even weirdly, I think that they were progressive in a way that they didn't that maybe we didn't appreciate, or they themselves didn't.
Well, we were kids too.
Yeah.
I think we were kids too, and so we couldn't even see that side of it necessarily.
Mm-hmm.
or just some of the nuance, like especially I've been watching The Simpsons lately.
Right.
And there's Simpsons, right? Old Simpsons. Oh yeah, it's Golden Age seasons 3 through 9 of The Simpsons.
Uh-huh.
And you know, I remember almost all those episodes so vividly, but I don't remember some of the little subtleties of the humor around it. You know, I just remember like there's certain jokes that your middle school mind gloms onto, and there's other ones that just go completely over your head, or you just don't remember because they're not relevant to you. And usually those are the ones that are a little bit more on the, for me, we're a little bit more on the political side.
Uh-huh.
I also find that rewatching Monty Python now as an adult, because I remember as a kid there were so many sketches that we would just fast forward through on the VHS tapes.
Oh, you would?
Oh, yeah. And
because it was like the boring part or something?
Yeah, we just didn't like those like we just had these specific sketches that we liked to see and revisit. And now looking back at those sketches, those were always the ones that were sort of more like more like politically engaged and less like just bizarre, you know?
Uh-huh.
Like the merchant banker interview. There's one that's like an interview with the merchant banker, and it's like this thing where this guy comes to get money for the orphans home.
Uh-huh.
And the merchant banker just completely is incapable of understanding the concept of charity. Like, he just doesn't get it. Like, he's like, so if I give you this money, what do I get back in return? And he's like, it's for charity. And he just doesn't, it's like they're speaking two different languages. It's amazing.
So as a kid, that was something that you were like, what? Like,
as a kid, it just wasn't resonant with me, because when you're a kid, you don't really think about, or at least I didn't really think about money very much. Maybe that's showing my waspy origins.
Or it's like romanticized in something like Robin Hood, which like watching it now, I think like I remember the word alms, but like no one ever explained to me what the fucking alms was. And then you had like this intense scene where the sheriff comes and like these little mice in the church, you know?
Oh,
and
yeah,
it's
no,
like the
Robin Hood, yeah.
Coin just, but I mean that because it's presented in such a sort of fairy tale, or like this is a story like based in European tradition, like it's not culturally and any of its trappings like at all to do with like modern day. Like I realize now I'm connecting with like what you're saying. The Monty Python thing was like presented as like such a separate way, like, oh, that's just like a story, or it's just like a thing.
But I think Robin Hood, that Disney Robin Hood is, I mean, that story just of the rich and the poor is timeless.
Yeah.
Well, hopefully not timeless, but it's still very relevant to today, I think. Anyway.
No, definitely.
But as a kid, you don't see you just don't feel the gravity of that content, you know?
Right.
That Robin Hood is so great also because of all the, you know, there's all those great scenes of them in drag.
Yes. Oh my gosh, I love those.
I think that's one of the really, I wouldn't pick it as my favorite Disney movie, but I think it is one of the greats.
It is a great.
It is really just a complete success. Yeah. I love that movie.
The music, like itself.
It's cute. It's got cute music. So yeah.
Okay, before I forget though, this is sort of semi-relevant what we were talking about before. I just came across this like yesterday on Facebook. Someone was like, "What if Rent were written today? Like, what would it be like?" And I was like, this sort of like loosely cobbled together like conversation via comments about what people thought would be different.
And what did it say?
I think some people were like, oh, like Maureen would have been part of Occupy, or like this whole thing. But I remember thinking like, well, I feel like instead of them being like as caught up, like the main characters being so caught up about like romanticizing, like rejecting getting a job, they would all be desperate for a job, and like I don't know, the whole millennials thing, like maybe their parents would be a lot more in the picture or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know if you had any
because
thoughts about that, if you liked Rent or not.
I definitely loved Rent at the time, and I cried and cried when I saw it. But like the more Rent has sort of sat with me over the years, the more ridiculous it's sort of become.
I know, right?
And just sort of tacky. Like I always think about the movie. Well, I actually have a funny story about Rent. I was tweeting about the show Daredevil. And I tweeted Rosario Dawson, something about Rosario Dawson is so beautiful on Daredevil that it makes me have a lightning bolt of heterosexuality, is what I said. And so I hit like, oh no. So then Rosario Dawson, I'm sure I'm mispronouncing it, likes the tweet. Yeah. She hits like on the tweet. And so now I'm just, out of my mind with Rosario Dawson fever.
Right. Why wouldn't you be?
And so I tweet out, Rosario Dawson, I love you so much. I loved you since the kids' days. That movie was like the true-to-life version of Rent, was what I said.
Huh.
But what I failed to remember in that moment, that she was also actually, while she was in the movie Kids, she also was very much in the movie Rent. So
and you tweeted that without remembering that?
And I had no memory of that. It was like I'd shaded, and I felt like I had shaded her a little bit for being in Rent.
Oh.
And so then I felt so bad, and she certainly didn't like that tweet. So that was the end of my relationship with Rosario Dawson.
So in a situation like that, is it like, I guess Twitter's just strange like that. Like, how much can you can't edit it like a Facebook comment. Like,
well, you can always delete it.
Keep explaining.
Post them and delete them until you're as famous as Kim Kardashian or Black China or whoever. No one is gonna save a little screen grab of that
true, I guess.
Tweet you posted. That's not gonna live on in gossip history when you're on my level. Let's just be honest about that. So you can always delete them. I don't know where I'm looking for the Moogles.
Oh, are we at that part I was reading?
Yeah, we are,
Secret
but
entrance on the left.
Okay, we're like well past that.
Oh, okay.
But maybe it just says make your way up to the lair of the Moogle, but I'm not entirely sure what that looks like. I feel like I'm about to heal all these people. Let's see. No, damaged them. That's good. Okay. Yeah, so that's my Rent story. But no, I definitely was really into it at the time. Mm-hmm. I don't know.
One thing I wrote was like, well, I would definitely want to move away from the whole romanticization
of suffering.
Of New York, too. But then again, it's kind of like romanticization of New York suffering. It's kind of like what Lena Dunham's show is like doing now, except maybe less diverse.
Well, less. I think a lot less, and also I think Lena Dunham very much recognizes. I don't know. I saw some interview with her where she was just talking about how like New York, even since when she started Girls, and she grew up in New York,
right?
And very well off,
right?
But New York, ever since she started Girls, has changed so much that it's just completely different now.
Yeah.
And I think most people would argue that it was already... Okay, here's our little guy.
That it was already that way.
Oh, yeah. That it was already pretty far that way, and it's just going, further and further.
Uh-huh. We found him.
Okay. All right, let's see.
Right, but then what did Lena Dunham have to say about New York changing? Like, do we care?
I don't know. She was just talking about how how, like, that's affecting the way she's writing the show. That's what I remember her saying. That she was writing the show to not be as, like... It's just not easy to be a young person in New York, and now everyone's moving to LA. You know, I think LA has, the past couple years, or longer, I would say the past 15 years, sort of been maybe what New York was the 15 years before that, you know?
Yeah, I can see that.
Because it is much more affordable.
Right.
I mean, I couldn't live, you know, I pay $600 a month in rent. Like, that's, like, insane.
Right.
For you know, I paid $350 a month in rent here in LA before. I was living in a house with 8 other people, grant you, but I still was able to live pretty happily.
Right, and on top of that, it's kind of like, even if you do find places for $600 in New York, like, everything else you're spending is, like, that much more.
I really cannot imagine a place in New York.
I see places for $700 and $900. Granted, they're, like, a room in a situation, but... In like Bushwick or, like, things like that.
Yeah, Bushwick, okay. Yeah. I really don't even know. I mean...
I see it on Brooklist, and that's why I started thinking it's like, oh... With the whole, like, have you seen those maps where it's, like, where people are migrating to, and, like, people from New York are coming here, and people from LA are leaving, or who were in LA, I don't want to say if they're from here.
But where are they moving? They're not moving anywhere cool.
Like
They're
Boston
just getting pushed
or
out.
Portland.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
I mean, I'm very, very loosely, like, drawing from something I saw, like a graphic, but it was, like, these big arrows, and, like, biggest arrow, you know, to LA is, like, from New York, which, like, we're seeing everywhere all the time, but...
Yeah, sometimes I feel like moving to Portland, partially because it seems cool, but also partially because I would feel like less of an interloper, you know? Just
what do you
because,
mean?
well, Portland is like the whitest city in America.
Oh, interloper, like, it's already white, so you're not going to be
Yeah,
this invader.
exactly. I feel the same way about, like, Berlin, you know?
Oh, yeah, that's
like,
fair.
like, I think about, like, oh, if Donald Trump gets elected, maybe I'll just move to Berlin. Because, you know...
Because you can, and... Yeah.
I mean, I don't know if I can. I don't know what...
Sorry.
I don't know what it would be like to move to Berlin for me. The thing is... The thing about moving to Portland, though, is that's also the thing that makes me not want to move there, is that it is so white, you know? Yeah. And the thing that I always find is, like, when you're in an area, like... As much as people talk about how, you know, racism and how that affects different economies and markets and people's lives here in LA, I have a feeling that the people in Portland, and people from Portland are going to get mad at me for saying this, but I just feel like usually in areas where it's really white, or really areas where it's really just not diverse in any way, people tend to be more racist, I guess, is the best way I could put it. Like, my friend Andrew, who's black, was thinking about moving up to Portland, and he just went up there to visit, and he just did not like the vibe.
Oh, no.
He just felt, like, very judged. And then my friend Jasmine, who went to Lewis and Clark College, which is in Portland, who definitely liked things about it, I think, she... kind of really regrets, I think, going there for college, just because it was so white and they just were so, you know, insensitive to racial issues, you know?
Just thinking they're beyond it or past it or something.
Yeah, they just don't, like, it was like, they just didn't want to hear her when she was saying, you know, like, this is really affecting me. People just didn't want to believe it, you know?
That's a shame. You know, I've never been to Portland.
I've never been either, and I've never been to San Francisco either. And that's another one where I sort of feel like, like, it used to be appealing for me to go visit San Francisco, but now it just sounds just like a tech industry fuckfest.
It sounds fun, like, if you know people who are living there now.
I mean, at the same time, I will admit that does sound kind of cool. I mean, I love, like, games and technology and, like, all that stuff, you know?
No, for sure, but you know...
So it sounds fun to me in a way, you know,
right.
But it also sounds like bad to me in a way. I don't know. Did you watch the show Looking?
No, I didn't.
Well, it's a gay man show, gay man's show, and It is set in San Francisco.
Okay.
And it's very it's definitely pretty. The main character is from tech industry. It's part of the tech industry. He's a video game designer. So I thought that was sort of interesting. That that the landscape of San Francisco, which used to be known for just being like, oh, this is just like a really gay, liberal, hippie city, right? Is now headed more in this direction of just technology.
Yeah.
Being
I like watching Silicon Valley or many.
Oh, I love it.
Yeah.
What do you know why though it became so tech oriented? That city specifically,
or
no? Like, do you have any idea? Because I really don't know why.
I feel like this was told to me at some point, but right now I'm drawing a blank. I'd have to ask someone who's from there.
Yeah, we better not get into it.
It's probably just because property was cheap and whatever.
Right.
And the community was into it at the time or something. Who knows?
Yeah.
Why does anything become anywhere?
Right, exactly.
Like, why did Hollywood come to California? You know what I mean? Or
That's
show up in California.
That's a good. These are the big metaphorical questions.
Like maybe for some reason someone just like sweats or whatever, makes other people sweat or something, builds a wheel, and then once it's turning, everyone's just like, well, it's always been turning, it's always been this way.
Right.
Before someone figures out something better. And that's something I heard about like maybe as long ago as like 5 years ago, is that like Austin's like sort of got its own Hollywood scene going on. Like a lot of people want to ish in the sense that like weather-wise and whatever, like that a lot of shooting goes on there for film, and that there are film people either working there, maybe not permanently, but just I'd heard that that's a thing now, or it's been a thing for a little while.
Yeah.
Film industry, Austin, the California of Texas.
Yeah, man.
Or SoCal, I'll say.
But the whole rest of Texas, actually, I don't know. Texas like always surprises me. Like, I always think of it as being this really just nightmare conservative state, and then
I love Texas.
And then you just find out that it's like totally.
There's some parts that are so chill.
Totally got these pockets of just absolute wonder and weirdness and everything.
And I think being in this part of SoCal too, we forget that parts of California are probably just the scariest parts of Texas culturally that we're taught to believe.
Maybe, yeah.
I think so. I mean,
where would you say?
I don't know, just
Pacoima?
I'm not sure. I mean, honestly, not to be rude or whatever, but probably just places I haven't heard of, you know?
Oh.
Something like that.
Palmdale?
Maybe nothing like with guns or, I don't know. Certainly, I'm not equating directly parts of California to Texas, but just that, again, because we're like taught to believe. Like, I grew up, I didn't even realize that I lived in like this conservative suburb until I just knew a little better, because I think I just somehow picked up on the general
By conservative suburbs,
California,
do you mean Santa Clarita, Valencia?
Yes. That because I just accepted culturally what I saw on TV as what is usually presented as California, as like, you know, we have the surfers, we have the movie stars, it's liberal, it's a blue state.
Let me just say, Santa Clarita, I mean, they don't have like a Republican mayor, do they?
Well, we had like a Republican like senator who was like Buck McKeon was like super conservative. We have like a lot of churches out there.
The only yeah.
I mean, not that, you know, I'm making generalizations, but yeah.
I mean, I just think like when I think of California, the only state I think of as being like Republican is like Orange County, kind of.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
Just because
Santa Clarita's pretty conservative. Like, we had a mock election when Bush went against Gore.
This is in your like elementary school?
Middle school, and Bush totally won.
Wow.
And this is like a bunch of middle schoolers who don't know anything.
That's
so it's like.
It's funny. Gore won at ours, but in the real thing, obviously Bush won.
I'll be honest, I don't even remember how California turned out, because I was not. My parents didn't talk about that stuff, and I didn't.
They didn't talk about politics.
Not at all. They paid more attention. It seemed to me that they paid more attention and talked more about politics in Taiwan than in the U.S. So like, all I learned from that was just what they taught me in school, and eventually when I met people who were interested in that sort of thing, like through them. So I was pretty, just going along with it. And in fact, the only person I remember voting for Gore in the mock election told me that they did so just to be like rebellious against their parents. So I don't even know what any of us were thinking. So I think that is a reflection, at least for that part of Santa Clarita. I mean, Placerita, which is the middle school I went to, Placerita Canyon was like a pretty big middle school. It's the kind of middle school that a lot of people's parents went to. Like, it's been there that long. So, yeah. They totally voted for Bush.
Your parents did, or just the kids?
Oh, I don't know what my parents voted for. If they voted at all, I don't think they did. I don't think they did.
Were they legally eligible to?
At the time, I'm sure. No, yeah, they were citizens by the time they had us. But,
yeah.
Yeah. So I don't. But again, I don't know. I don't even know if they like what they voted for like even 8 years ago.
So now, I will make a confession, which is that I totally wanted John McCain to be the president during that first Bush election.
Really?
Oh yeah. I didn't want
Did
Bush.
Did he go up against McCain?
But I did want.
In 2000?
No.
I'm sorry.
No, he didn't. But in the primary season,
Oh.
and then when Gore like went back on the. Like, there was a moment where Al Gore conceded that he wasn't going to be president, essentially. And then they realized that there was all that voting drama in Florida, right?
The Chads, yeah.
The hanging Chads. And it was like... Then Gore was like, no, I'm still in the running to be president. I don't concede. Huh. And I remember, like, thinking for some reason that was really stupid of Al Gore to do. I don't know why. Huh. And so then I don't know, it just made me, like, even a little more conservative. My dad, who voted Republican for many years...
But you couldn't vote at that time.
No.
Yeah.
But my dad... I voted for Obama the first time I could vote. My dad... was like... Why are you being Republican? Like, this doesn't make sense. You are not... the only reason you're doing that... Like, there's nothing about Republicans, which he was one, that would ever appeal to young people. Like,
oh, so your dad even accepted, like, you're of the generation, like, you shouldn't be thinking the same as me, or
I mean, my dad's just whole thought on it, I think, is just, like, if you're a kid, why would you ever vote Republican? Because it's literally just voting about money, about keeping and saving money.
Like, because you couldn't even have an opinion about it yet.
And that would absolutely be my dad's logic for voting Republican, is that he just sort of, I think, feels like, okay, listen, there's a lot of people out there who pretend to care about a lot of things. But the truth is...
That's the way to put it. Yeah.
The truth is, I don't care about anyone besides my family. That's the only people in the entire world I care about at all.
And this is your dad talking, yeah.
Oh, yeah. And you know what? Like, honestly, like, that is, like, a really honest... and good thing for him to say, because I do think that, like, a lot of liberal people and conservative people, whatever they're trying to put out there into the world, don't really care about these issues exactly. Like, my dad's logic is like, yeah, like the hippie, because my dad was a total hippie. He had really extreme liberal views in college and stuff. In college, my dad thought that it should be legal for black people to commit murder because of slavery. That was one of my dad's...
For them to even be considered, like, guilty of murder.
That they should never be convicted of that.
Right.
Because slavery was so bad that they should just be able to do, like, legally whatever they want in this country. That was my dad's beliefs in college.
Interesting.
But his belief, and I can kind of probably agree, I'm sure this is certain truth to this, was that a lot of the hippie thing and, like, acting like a, rebel or whatever... was just a way to get girls. It was just a way to seem sexy.
The beat generation.
It was just a way to seem sexy, and so it was just fake. And that's sort of my dad's. That was sort of my dad's logic on it, essentially.
I could see the truth in that.
But I really don't think. I think he might have voted for Obama in the last election, and I really don't think he will vote for Trump. I mean, he told me he wasn't going to. So.
By the sounds of it, I'd be surprised. Yeah. The little bit you told me.
Oh, I can't open... I don't know where I'm supposed to be going here. It's making me mad.
Do we need to look something up?
It just says, Turn to the entrance of Narsh and head up into the main area of the mines. When you enter the mines, make a right. Oh, okay, so I didn't do the right thing. I didn't make the right.
What are these wheelie creatures?
I don't know.
They look like something out of Ninja Turtles.
I saw the new Ninja Turtles.
Oh, how was it?
You know,
I
it was
really
fun.
squeezed out by the one before.
Oh, I thought you said you kind of liked it.
Did we talk about this? We're talking about like the CG one where they look all crazy, right?
The Ninja Guidos.
Yeah.
I thought you said you kind of liked it.
Oh my gosh, I mean I don't recall talking to you about it.
But you did not like it.
I remember being weirded out by it, and maybe I'm remembering my impression of the trailer. To be honest, I don't recall much of the film in this moment. But, you know.
I just remember thinking,
just
like...
tell me what you think about the second one.
I thought it was fine. I don't know, like... Like, it wasn't, like... I didn't have, like, high expectations going in. I'm only recently realizing how much of a factor my expectations for a movie impact my, like, movie-going experience, and the best thing is for my expectations to be really low. Like, my expectations for the last X-Men movie were really low because the reviews were really bad, and then I actually kind of enjoyed it. Whereas for Civil War,
Which
Captain America...
Seen, right.
Which is like one of the most critically well-received superhero movies ever, and is considered now to be one of the best superheroes movies ever by like the critical community, film critic community. I was so excited for it, and my expectations were so blown out of proportion that I didn't really enjoy it as much as I maybe would have if I just like gone into it thinking like, oh, it's another Captain America movie, you know.
Maybe that's my problem with, like, CG animated films. Which is not to say that I don't think that I go in with these high expectations, because, you know, they're, like, relegated into this, like, for kids category and, like, whatever, but, okay, take Zootopia, for example.
Okay.
I like, saw it, and I was like, I, like, didn't love it. But at the same time, like, maybe I think it's, like, a little bit better than Inside Out, but at the same time, Zootopia, I think, is, like, without Pixar, and Inside Out was Pixar, if I remember correctly.
That's correct.
And I usually hold, like, whenever Pixar is involved, them to, like, a higher creativity standard, or, like, story, or whatever. There usually might be more surprises, so in that sense, maybe, oh, I'm sorry, maybe Inside Out was, like, inventive, and at least, like, opened up an important conversation I think we should have about kids and, like, their complexity, right? Sidestepping the whole imaginary friend schmaltzy thing. But Zootopia, I thought that being something that was just full of, you know, visual jokes for, I'm guessing, the adults, and, you know, more so, even more specifically, the adults that are familiar with LA, having, like, jokes about Tahunga being called Tajunga, like, for the jungle part of the world. I don't know, have you seen Zootopia?
Oh, yeah.
Sorry. Oh, yeah. And making these, like, very, very real-world allusions, while at the same time painting this reality that's totally separate from humans, totally, like, its own specific thing, I think is, like, I guess I don't know what to call it, but it bugs me. So they have, like, a joke on Google, and they have a phone that looks like an iPhone, but it's a carrot.
the entire Zootopia thing to me was like just about racism also.
I know, but it's not, but it is. And so I think it's one of those things where they wanted to talk about it in a way that's accessible and not like overly charged or whatever, but failed to do it in a way that acknowledges how near to our real world the whole look of the place is. And yeah, I mean, I absolutely agree. And even just when they were looking for clues and they end up at this, I don't know, they don't even call it a thing, where every animal's naked and they're doing yoga, and they have someone doing, you know, an Indian, or I'm sorry, I don't actually know if they're Indian, but someone doing what sounded like an Indian accent, you know, doing these like ridiculous yoga poses and being really bad at answering questions. You know, it all gets like boiled down to a joke when it doesn't serve the story at all. It's all just like decoration, and we just
remember he was talking in an Indian accent. I thought he was just like a hippie.
Oh no, yeah, not talking about the yak. It's the elephant that the yak takes them to. I mean, they end up finding out stuff from the yak, and the whole.
Oh,
joke
I don't
is,
remember it having an Indian accent.
Oh, yeah. Well, anyway.
But I'm sure it's true. I'm sure you're right. I just don't remember it. I liked the movie a lot. I thought it really dealt really well with some of the complexities of racism. Mm-hmm. My problem with the film, if there was any, was like the ways that the situation they sort of set up was was very different from racism, simply in that in the film they sort of established that there was this moment in history when, like, predators had to eat
Right.
the prey, but now they don't anymore, but that stigma still exists, you know?
Right.
But there was, like, never really a
Like, how do
moment
they
in
do
history
that?
where black people had to eat white people to survive.
Sure. Well, I don't even think that I'm not
That was
supposing
my-
that the authors were specifically thinking about race. I think it's more just like, let's talk about something.
I think they were
all
really specifically thinking about
really though, because
race.
they totally sidestep, like, it's all mammals, but they don't include apes or monkeys, and it's like they allude to these worlds where there's like a fish town or something like that, but you never see any fish.
Oh,
So
I
it's
don't
like
know if I'm gonna be
very
able to beat this
convenient. So are we
dragon.
supposed to assume that everyone in Zootopia is a vegetarian? Like, how do they get around these issues? Like, what do they eat then? Like, predators who like
Okay.
naturally have to eat, does that mean they like develop when they evolved? They develop, like, I don't know, some magical way where they all like can sustain on American food. You know what I mean? So it's like they are very much in kind of this weird version of America that's not. It's like trying to be transhuman, like some kind of yeah, like a utopia metropolitan thing where we're not even trying to question how it is that, or why it's even relevant that they have all these like different worlds, if not only to just have an interesting place, different interesting places for our main characters to go.
Right.
So like I said, I mean, I didn't go in like expecting anything, and I'm not saying that they need to like do this whole academic paper in one film, but I do think that certain decisions that don't have to be in the story, certain things that aren't important to the story that are included, say something. You know, like choosing what accents people speak in, that's like pretty important, however like subtle it is. Those are decisions that people make. Those are creative decisions people make, and the whole weird sort of like a surveillance culture and how it's like, it's cool as long as you're the good guy, and like it's cool to like ice someone as like a mob leader as long as you're doing it for the good guys, and like, you know, I don't know. I think it's a little. I think kids are fine. Like, you know, I'll let a kid see it. I'm not saying anything extreme like that, but it's just sort of. I think it brings up more than it thinks it does in a way that should be treated with a bit more nuance than it gets treated.
Oh my god, I'm totally dead.
I'm sorry.
This is really
Was it
bad.
my like tirade against Zootopia?
I mean, I wasn't even.
Jesse loves that film, and I we haven't had a conversation directly about it, but she heard that I didn't like the film, and I think she was kind of like, "Oh well, Melody, you're too critical about it," and I'm like, "No, I don't think I'm being too critical about it."
I mean, I think. Okay, let's see if we can. No, we're all gonna die.
Oh no!
Let's see.
What happens when you all die?
You just get a game over.
Does that mean you have to go back to a save point?
Yeah, but I can't remember.
Oh shit!
I can't remember the last time I saved.
Oh.
Oh my god.
Isn't this like at the beginning of our interview?
Yes.
Oh my god, John.
This whole episode, I didn't achieve anything.
I'm so sorry.
That's disgraceful.
Ah.
It's okay though. Now at least I know what to do.
Yeah, that's true.
Well, let's get Shadow back.
Wow.
What time is it? When did you think we started? 6:30?
An hour ago or so.
I
showed up at your doorstep at 6:32.
Okay, so I bet we're at about an hour. And we
like.
did the episode. We didn't achieve anything in the game. But now I know exactly what I'm supposed to do next. So at least we've accomplished that.
That's good.
This is the first time that this has happened. I think.
Is
where
it
I've completely
me?
forgotten. No, it's not you
There
at
was
all.
another tech thing the last time you interviewed me.
Oh, that's true. But I think it was just I forgot to save.
Oh.
Oh well. It's okay. Anyway, this has been another episode of Let's Gay with Johnny Jungle Guts.
Yay.
And Melody Yenn has been joining me. Thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thanks for having me.
I don't have anything to plug right now. I'm currently working on a party at Precinct in downtown LA, gay video game themed party, where we'll have a Smash Brothers tournament. And
when will that be?
Oh, I'm still working on it, so I don't have a date, so I don't even know why I'm plugging it yet. But
Stay tuned.
Stay tuned. It's going to be a monthly party at Precinct, and I'm so excited.